What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Play the Fights on College Football Show National Championship Preview. Big day, big time day. We waited all year. We previewed 12, 13 weeks of college football all the way through bowl season to talk about this game. The college football playoff is wrapping up. There are two teams that remain. Notre Dame, Ohio State. Should be a fun battle. The Bucks are a decently heavy favorite for a national championship game as they roll through the playoff. And then a banged up Notre Dame team is still alive, so well coached. So we'll break that one down later tonight's show. Before that, we are going to talk the transfer portal as normal. Then we will go into the semifinal recaps. And of course, before we get into the show, we got to tell you about our good partners over at No Rivals. Shop norivals.com. Use the code PTFS at checkout on all your premium collegiate headwear. A new drop tomorrow, the Hometown Camo collection. So check that out live at noon on the 17th of January. It's probably live if you're listening to this on repeat or podcast right now. Let's hit the like button. Let's hit the subscribe button. Let's talk to the boys. JP, how are we doing to break down the national title?
Yeah, pumped. I think it'll be an awesome showing. Again, just the Monday thing is always just a little bit of a bore, and the facts that you get like through a whole weekend, it feels like they'd all fit really well Friday night, Saturday night, but we do it Monday night. Pumped for it. I think it'll be exciting. I think one of these teams is expected to be here. The other one has just looked really good in some spots throughout this thing and fought their way to this point. So pumped for it. I know Jacobs is a little bit more amped up for one side, and then maybe I am.
Yeah, Jake, talk about it. You're Irish or in? You're Irish.
I'm wondering where Lou Holtz is right now. That's what I'm wondering. I mean,
where will in bed? It's like 8 p.m. on the East Coast. He's got to be in bed.
What would he say about the toughness of this team? No, I
cannot believe that.
You cannot believe it. I can't believe we get these two rematch, I guess you could say, for the national title. Rematch from a year ago. But I hope it's just as good as it was in South Bend last year. That game was awesome. It wasn't as pretty as everybody would like, scoring defense, but I think we'll get into all of that. But I think it's going to be pretty similar. Just maybe some different faces quarterback, which makes it more exciting, which is why both of these teams are in the national title this year, is probably the change of quarterback.
Yeah, the play styles match up so differently. It's going to be exciting to break down later in the show tonight. Let's not go too far down the line with everything else because we want to leave time to talk about the national title. Obviously, everybody is here for that. So let's open up tonight's show. Let's go into the transfer portal. Let's get this conversation rolling because there's always things happening with the portal season being wide open. The big news that we have noted, Carson Beck obviously goes to Miami, kind of out of nowhere, originally declared for the draft, then went into the portal, ends up at Miami as his girlfriend plays there, I believe. Is that right? Am I right in saying that? I should have double checked it, but she plays basketball there.
She is. Yep. Cavender. Have you ever heard of her?
I've never heard of her. I'm a married man, Jake. I'm excited to break down college football and not Carson Beck's extremely good-looking woman. We will also go to Matthew Sluka, goes to James Madison. Remember him, former quarterback at UNLV, dropped off as UNLV stood at like 5-6-0. It was a huge story that first time that UNLV reached that point, and then he kind of fell off. Now he'll play at JMU, which is a good spot for him. And then a lot of other guys are rotating around. It's so hard to follow this late in the portal season with all the people going in or finding homes, maybe just not posting about it. It's usually the bigger names. What do you guys think from those two names? What jumps out to you? How do you think Beck will fit at Miami, Jake?
Do you ever think Miami and Iowa could be in the same sentence? Do you know what they have in common? They're both paying quarterbacks millions of dollars to have off-season surgery on their throwing arms. So yeah. I don't know. Miami's paying a lot for Carson Beck for, I know baseball, but elbow surgery or whatever you want to call it. Have any other choice? No, probably not. They could have picked up Matthew Sluka, I guess, but because he was probably the only one left. But man, it just like I hate it. I hate it for Miami. There's some bigger national media heads, talked about it, kind of eat into it more. I guess people that I just trust in the media that I was like, all right, maybe I kind of see it. And they think like Miami could win still 10 games with Carson Beck next year. I don't know. I tend to disagree if the defense is going to play like that. I know they grabbed Minnesota's defensive coordinator. So you got to expect like some change. And I know they overhauled at least 4 different cornerbacks in the transfer portal. So the secondary, they're trying to at least make it better. But Carson Beck is not Cam Ward, and he will not win games for you alone. You need help around him. Now in January, I guess it's just a wait and see, but he's not going to be going through spring ball. So how many reps is he going to get? Is he going to be ready?
That's a fair place to put it. What do you think, JP?
Yeah, I think just looking at what the ACC was this year, right? And if Miami does stay the same, I think they're sitting in the same boat they were this year. Like, if they decline a little bit, I can see, I just don't see that team winning only 7 or 8. Like, I think 9-3 or 10-2 is way more of a possibility. And again, like, Beck's not a bad quarterback. It's just, it's fitting him into a scheme that you think is going to work. Make sure you have the run game still working. And talent there. And then again, like Jake's saying, like, make sure the defense is still good. The Sluka thing, like, I just think it's interesting that he ended up at a pretty darn good G5 after all that happened, right? And James Madison is not where I thought he'd end up. Maybe that's just a Chesney thing. Go ahead.
I was just going to rebuttal and say, like, it's a good spot for him, but it's funny because he's not Q1 next year. Like, all accounts, Alonzo Barnett is the guy. And it's just funny because this kid quit on his team 4 games in because he wasn't getting paid. And then he was literally, like, I checked the 247 transfer portal quarterbacks. He was the last one left, and he was the first one in. Just kind of ironic.
Just with what James Madison does and their ability to throw the ball around the yard, the fit is just interesting to me.
Absolutely.
Great arm and that can sling around and get the ball to playmakers in space and throw people open. And so I thought that was the interesting point for me. But yeah, I mean, quarterbacks continue to lack like the big name. And we said before the 24 season that there were a lack of like superstar quarterbacks anyway. Like, there weren't real, there was a couple here or there, like a Cam Ward and a Shedeur and stuff like that. And then obviously some emerged throughout the year, but there wasn't one that was like, this guy is going to change a lot of things in the sport, just to, stop and stare, watch talent. So now that the transfer portal is not as great for that position, it kind of makes sense.
I think when you look at Sluka, maybe was that in his mind? Like, when he dropped out of UNLV, right? He's not getting paid. They promised him this. I know he was offered that money after he decided to go, and it was just kind of that bridge was already burnt. Like, I think there was also part of his decision that was, I'm going to go Power 4 somewhere. Like, I'm going to go play quarterback at Rutgers, and then nobody called. Like, he burned bridges to the point where he became a guy that people didn't really want. So
I really think he had Power 4 aspirations. Like, I don't even if he stayed there, got paid the money, and then hit the portal, I don't think he was good enough to get most spots.
I think he thought that, to Cam's point. Like, too. And I bet I guarantee, like, this is one of those shitty stories, man, that this is the new age we live in, where like these agents that are in these 21, 22-year-old kids' ears, just like, he's like, yeah, man, you're not getting our money. Go enter the portal now. When he was already lucky in the first place, because he shouldn't have been the starter from day one. Hodge Williams was clearly better. Barry Odom took a chance on him. They started off undefeated. They beat Kansas. It was all going great. And now they're bitching about money, and he could have had good opportunities. And I'm sure some of it's UNLV's fault, but this is the thing, like, where we see these agents who are quote unquote agents, it's kind of disgusting, to be honest with you guys.
You see I don't know how true it is, but like some of them are reporting that they're taking 20% of those earnings.
That is true. They are
crazy
taking
amount,
25%. And
real sports agents in the NFL make like 2
and
to 5%.
Most of them are either
Scumbags.
Like family friends, or just meet people, or like call themselves an agent, and they're getting signed because it's so new. Nobody was prepared to have like a full launched agency completely ready to roll in this. And it's just like, these guys don't know anything. In a lot of cases, they're learning as everybody goes, and they're just capitalizing off of it.
Look at Darian Mensah, the transfer from Tulane to Duke. Look at his agent. He works for Young Money, like it's owned by like Lil Wayne or something. And he doesn't look like he's ever watched a college football game in his entire life. And he just Darian.
They don't have to, because think about, like, I understand there's some negotiating around NIL, but like, it's completely based off what that team needs for that specific year. It's completely based on how talented the kid was the season before, right? Like, you're not negotiating these like in some ways it's a little bit livelihood, like, but it's not an NFL contract where like you have to really finagle and work your way into these spots, because if the college don't want you, they don't want you. It's that simple. And there's also a billion of you out there, not 15 free agent quarterbacks, that hit, or like 5 that hit free agency every year. And a lot of those guys don't land a good spots or get what they're worth. And that's professional football, So like there's so many more, and there's so many systems that are plug and play guys. Like you can go find a guy that run any system in some spots.
I think it's safe to say, like, is there a real feeling of these new agents in the NIL era that are like, yeah, I really want what's best for you. I think you should take $50,000 less and go play at a team that's going to compete towards the top of a division. Like, no, they're just like, hey, that number is bigger than that number, and I'll take 20% of the higher number, please, and thank you. Sign there. Also, that's their school.
On the agent side of things, like, it can't be the most secure job in the world. Like, we've seen, how many stories have we seen? Like, kids get paid, like money gets kind of lost in the weeds, and these contracts kind of get lost in the weeds. And you're taking a gamble on these young kids that we're just assuming these collectives are going to pay you, and then you're going to get the cut of that. I just think of it from the business perspective too. Like, some of these guys, I'm sure they've gotten screwed over, tens of thousands of dollars before too. Like Sluka's agent.
For sure.
Dude, the collectives, looking further into them, as I've gotten a chance to do recently, is you'd be shocked at how many of them, I mean, a majority of them are nonprofit organizations somewhat tied to the university now. They're the biggest one in the country is a for-profit entity out of Ohio State. For-profit. Like they are pocketing it as the business as well as giving the money to kids.
Yeah. How does that work? Well, so like, for instance, like Iowa State, like in the Iowa State world, everybody knows who Brent Bloom is. Like, that is his job. He does work for a nonprofit, but he makes money because he helps the deals. So like, how does that work for the for-profit business side of like Iowa State?
I think it's for tax purposes. Is the nonprofits, they avoid taxes in a lot of ways. So it's usually publicly tied entities to universities. But that means the foundation, which is Ohio State's second collective, run by Cardell Jones, who we'll talk about later, fun fact, is the not-for-profit. But then there's like these big boom business guys that funnel their own business money into this collective. But it goes for a tax write-off for their outside business, and it is taxed as the collective, which is then a public entity.
They get a truck commercial that they're paying sole player, and it's a tax write-off for them for advertising.
It's the biggest collective in the country, number one in the country, over $10 million in funds in one season. And that's a $27 million roster between the two collectives. So that we can go days with collectives after looking into them. There is so much information out there. You should check it out on On3. They rank them all. You can see all their websites. Boise State just founded a new one. So check those out sometime in your free time, but we can go all day on there. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the NFL draft on the transfer portal side of things. Instead of being in the portal, these guys are going to the draft. The notable ones, Trevor Etienne. Everybody knows that name, especially the cops down there. Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, and then Ewers has a question mark by it. We don't know yet. We haven't heard officially.
I mean,
those are all doubts. He did declare.
It's until he can withdraw, I think, would be the question mark. Like he'd take his name out of it.
Would be hard pressed, right? Like with the amount of money they're paying.
I don't know. They're floating around numbers that people were offering him 7-8 to come play a year, but those are articles. I think 24/7 had one out there, and so I believe people like
$8 million.
To some programs, you are worth like kind of what people want to pay for you in the NIL world. Like, should you be paying them that? I don't know, but like, if you want a quarterback that bad and you're willing to, I guess, like, what are you going to tell them? Like, there's no fans that are sitting there being like, that's really where we want to put $8 million to. You know what I mean? Like, you can grab for $8 million, you can grab 10 guys that can make a difference. Like, or your high-end defensive tackles aren't doing that. Yeah.
That's more expensive than a new head coach. 75% of salaries are under $8 million.
The school pays the coach, not like maybe so-said business guy who, like you just talked about, who gives Ewers $8 million by himself. He said, "I'll take care of Ewers. You take care of everybody else."
Some real SMU stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for our boy to jump in, but GA drops in, and he does say that we've seen Ewers' ceiling. I think that's a good, really, really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what he would do more at Texas. Like, can you get him some more weapons?
It's tough to be healthy, man. I think when he was good, man, he was really good. And I defended him all year. And it's just tough for a kid to continually go through all that And he was good in that Ohio State game. Like he really was. Like the pick he threw was what the last drive of the game where you have to make something happen. So what are you going to say there? But he did look really good there. I think Texas in some other ways struggled more, not just because the red zone offense wasn't great. The run game wasn't great majority of the year. It wasn't this. I think the 2023 version of Quinn Ewers was like awesome. I thought he was great.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the 24 version just couldn't stay healthy. And I don't think that's, it's just one of the things people deal with. And definitely a less talented offense than the 23 one, but the better defense. And I think that, like, I was high on Texas both of these years. And if I'm going to end in the semifinals, like with both of them, I think I would keep my Quinn Ewers stock.
All right. While we're on the topic, let's stay on it and let's answer this question from coming in from JT, part of our Iowa State team. Do you guys think Ewers or any other of these QBs like Milroe will end up going back to school, sort of like Cam Ward last season? I actually think you hit the nail on the head. I think Milroe is going to be the guy. I think Milroe will go back.
What's the deadline that they can
It's
get out
Lord
of
knows,
that?
man.
It's in February sometime. I can't remember the exact date, but they can withdraw their name from the draft.
Okay.
But I don't know that exact number or that
I
exact
think
date.
Milroe will.
I saw Milroe, maybe. I saw Ewers was like Mel Kiper's 5th best quarterback available. I mean, that's still good money at, a 3rd round spot, probably.
Mhm.
So I think that's there for Ewers. The Milroe thing's interesting. You still feel like you haven't heard much from his camp. I think he did officially declare, but just the way they went about it was odd.
I don't understand what he's going to get told in that draft process that he's going to be like, yep, this was the right decision.
We could spend hours on it, but like, if you're an Ohio State fan, would you want to spend $6 million on Milroe next year?
No.
No? Or who is it? Sayan's the backup? Is that
Yeah.
the guy
And if
they're
we're going to
rolling
put
with?
money and resources into high school recruiting and have 3-4-star guys plus and not give any of them shots, I think it's a waste of money and time.
Well, and then the other part of Justin's question, like, I think Carson Beck was the only one we were kind of waiting for, and he came back. And then Drew Aller, there's no way Drew Aller's, and he's staying too.
I don't think he'll leave.
after that game last week. So I think we pretty much know everybody, I would say, besides Milroe would be my guess.
And that was our next point is who's staying, who announced they're staying. Drew Aller, who already named, is staying at Penn State. Nick Singleton, another huge retention piece for the Nittany Lions. What do you guys think? Yeah, I mean, it's massive, especially with Bo Pribula going over and hitting the portal before the playoff even started. To now know you're not trying to get you're only your 2nd stringer moving up, but now your 3rd stringer. How big is that retention piece for Penn State, Jake?
I mean, as poor as this quarterback class or these, bundles of quarterbacks right now in college football feel, 75, 80% of schools are going to be okay with Drew Aller playing quarterback for him right now. And I think if you're a Penn State fan, you're going to be happy with it. He took strides, I thought, in every game pretty much, but the biggest game all year. And there were a lot of, I guess, probably the 2 biggest games all year if you count the Ohio State game. And sometimes I'm definitely guilty of this. I can't get those games out of my head. Like, I don't watch Penn State 24/7 a ton. But all eyes have been on them in their biggest games. And like, you don't get the best out of Drew Aller. It's crazy. But you do get Katron Allen and Nick Singleton back. So he's not going to have to do everything for them next year. Harrison Wallace just jumped in the portal. You got to think in the spring they're going to maybe try to swing on some more receivers. But
you got to swing on everybody.
How many times are we going in this circle with Penn State, though? And James Franklin, this quarterback, he's going to get us over the hump. Okay, he can't. The next one's up. Oh, now it's the receiver's fault. Okay, let's get more.
I think they are firmly in the receiver room needs just a massive overhaul. Like, you can't
Julian
get
Fleming
another
wasn't
guy.
who he needed to be.
No, he clearly wasn't the answer. And I think like you have to go make a splash. No more settling for these kids that are like good out of high school, don't get a ton of snaps at their last school, or don't, sit like 8th or 9th on a depth chart, but they were high recruit. Like, what about these kids that are at smaller schools that are lighting the world on fire? Then go find a system that works for them. There's plenty of them. Like, there's so many G5s with talent at the receiver position. I think receiver is about as deep in college football as it's been for a long time, all over the board. Like, there are schools all over the place that have talented receivers. You have to be able to go get some if you're going to consider yourself to take the next step. And Aller has to take that step with them. but you have to. I mean, I
Do you
just
think,
feel like there's guys out there that they could, go get that would make differences, but
JP?
they haven't hit any on them. Haven't
I
hit
ask,
on any of them.
again, I don't mean to. I actually am not intentionally throwing you under the bus on this one, but I ask, is like Penn State kind of like Iowa in a situation where now you have this stigma of like you can't produce receiver stats, like it's just not happening. Like, and you kind of just bury yourself in this hole at this point where you can't go. Like Iowa picked up a Chattanooga kid. Like it's going to have to be at that point for Penn State. It feels like, right? Because why would any of these other kids take a swing on you? Harrison Wallace is top. He's a top 50 transfer right now. And he caught what, 400 yards this year, 40 passes.
Well, if you're gonna call yourself Penn State and have a real shot and say you're a national title contender each year, you better not be swinging the same class as Iowa to go get receivers. Like you should be able to beat the stigma with your money and your coach in the system.
Your offensive coordinator.
You should be able to swing that. Yeah, you should be able to swing that. Like that's what I don't think. Like there might be a stigma, but it should be easy to beat if you are who you say you are.
I would agree, especially with Drew Aller, who should be a top 5 pick or top 5 quarterback in the draft.
God. I was
2
gonna
years.
say,
No,
I'm just
no.
like fainting back here.
No.
Falling out of my chair.
No.
Somebody just turned the stream off. Somebody before they let you correct yourself just
You're
closed
like, you
out
listen
the
to these idiots. This guy said top 5 pick.
I've heard some bad takes floating around about the draft, but let's not get into the draft. We'll have plenty of time for that in the offseason. Let's talk about the college football playoff semifinals. Let's recap those games briefly before we preview the national title for this year. Let's first start with Notre Dame and Penn State. We've obviously got to talk about Aller and Singleton most recently. Let's talk on the Notre Dame side of things in this game. They come back, win this one 27-14, kick a go-ahead field goal with 9 seconds left off of a Drew Aller interception, which he was pretty heartbroken about at the end. Understandably, pretty nice comeback, especially with Riley Leonard being banged up, an injury in the offensive line that's going to hurt him in the national title. But what do you think on this game? And I know you were pretty, I don't know how to say it nicely, but you were pretty critiqueful on Drew Aller during the game there, Jake. What did you think on this matchup?
The Drew Aller piece, kind of over it as far as like what I've had to say about the kid. The loss is 100% on him. I don't even actually blame, like James Franklin can't win the big one. I don't even blame James Franklin. And maybe he's to be blamed for the development of his quarterbacks over the years, but that was all a Drew Aller. I mean, Drew Aller, the 3 completions he had 10 plus yards down the field were all drawn up, misdirection stuff by Kotelnicki, just Warren's running straight down the field across the middle. Could not complete a screen pass, nothing. And then he throws that absolutely horrendous pick that we all saw. I think if you're Penn State, you just got to go to overtime there. And I know McElroy was like, I think you'd be aggressive here. And I'm like, have we watched Drew Aller throw the ball all night? Like this team can still run the ball in Notre Dame. They were still running it well. Get on a 20-yard field, play close within the red zone. That's your bread and butter right now. And then Notre Dame wasn't perfect on offense. So like you're just rely on that defense again to make a play. The Notre Dame side of things, we'll talk about Notre Dame in a minute, but now isn't this like TCU was 3 years ago. So this is probably the 3rd straight, at least semi or runner up, whatever, national title attendee that has they just keep sticking around and they keep winning these close games. You had TCU, you had Washington. Now you got Notre Dame. And it's just kind of funny. Like one side, you'll get the juggernaut, and this year it's presumably Ohio State. But then you have that Notre Dame team who's been pesky, battling injuries, and they've made their way back, and they're in the national championship.
Yeah, when you think about this team, is it interesting to me? It's interesting to me, I would say, that Notre Dame just continues to do it with how their season's gone. Like, how many people would have believed you after a week, even 5, give them a week at NIU game, or week 3 after the NIU game, is, hey, this team's going to beat Penn State in the Final Four. They would have been like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, they just lost to NIU, and they significantly taken injury hits since then. And they just keep doing it. So it does feel like TCU to me, like they're hitting walk-off field goals to beat people, but then all of a sudden they're in the playoff and they beat somebody good and they beat another team good. So God knows what's in store for them. But I just thought, what an impressive comeback for Riley Leonard to come back in the game and play the way they did, especially with the hit and fumble they took late when he had to go out. Just felt like everything could have gone south quick and the team nutted up and came back. So I'm glad that it turned out to be a good ball game. was one that hurts the NFL is better crowd because there's always close games and college football is only blowouts. It's not only blowouts, man. It's just matchup to matchup, and there's 134
How
teams.
about that first round of the NFL? How about those awesome games? That was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
just riveting, just absolutely riveting. The Vikings Rams super close from the jump.
Thanks for
Especially
coming out,
neutral
Broncos and
site.
Vikings. You guys
Looked great for a quarter
out
there.
for a
For a
drive.
half. For a whole half.
No, but that's not real. That was just it kind of crumbled that way. College football is the only one that has blowouts. Those were close games because it was very talented teams. Am I right, NFL fans? But what do you think on this matchup, JP? Back to Penn State, Notre Dame.
Yeah, I liked Penn State in that spot, and I felt good the whole time. I think if you're Penn State, though, like you can't stifle yourself on defense and you start giving up big plays to the run game, and that's how Notre Dame got back in that thing. I think that's the pain of all this is that it looked good for a half. Your defense is kind of falling apart on a couple of big plays in the run game, which is what you hang your hat on, and then just stop offensively. Like things stop working. I think I kind of go back and forth on the decision to go for. I'm not going to sit there and say one was the right or wrong answer. I would have seen it both ways. You could hear both arguments. I just think the ball that was thrown is the ultimate end all be all there. Like, that's just one of those things. And, like Penn State, Ohio State in some ways would look differently because Penn State's healthier, but in some ways, like Notre Dame getting their crack, because I feel like they've earned it here. It makes a lot of sense. And you have to tip your hat to them. They were really able to go win a game that felt like they had no shot in for a little bit and were kind of getting dominated along the line of scrimmage on both ends of the line of scrimmage. I mean, defensive line for Penn State was having their way. The offensive line for Penn State was having their way. And then things just kind of snowballed in the second half. And, one team's always going to end up standing. Yeah, like one team's always going to find a way to win. And just this one has found a way consecutively. It feels like the coaching and the belief of the team is just on a different level right now. And, I think Lou Holtz was like saying different stuff, and he's just like basically saying that God's on his side and Notre Dame's side. But
God's on Notre Dame's side.
Yeah, but if you look at and not to preview too much in the future, just like we had a comment pop up like, yeah, Notre Dame's defense is that good. I agree. But they kind of made Penn State be something they weren't, and Penn State couldn't adjust to it, and that was that simple. They made Indiana do something that traditionally Indiana's good at. Well, then you throw a couple picks, we're dropping footballs, we're just making stupid mistakes. And it's just, you just keep
that was to your point, JP. That was the first time in this 12-team playoff. That was the first time I felt like a team caused more turnovers or more mistakes and still came out with a win.
Mm-hmm.
Like any other team that made mistakes, turned the ball over, they just shot themselves in the foot and lost in the game. And the other semifinal game was case in point as well.
Let's go to the game. Let's flip it over. Let's go to Texas and Ohio State. Ohio State takes down Texas 28-14. Really a close game all the way through. Ohio State puts up a shutout in the fourth quarter, including a huge fumble recovery, return for a touchdown, a scoop and score from Jack Sawyer to put icing on the cake, followed by an interception. They made Texas throw the ball 40 times, but Will Howard also threw it over 30 times, and really no team could get the run game going. What do you think on that game, JP?
Yeah, you made him throw it 40 times, and Quinn said, all right, let's do this. And he looked great. I think there is a massive tip of the hat to Sark here on his ability to find something that's working. I think what kind of happened was, and I'm not going to sit and speak like I know all ball here, but Ohio State sat,
all ball.
Like Ohio State sat in a lot of it felt like cover 2s or 4s. And the ability for Texas to find that gap between under the safety, above the linebacker, and just continually pick it apart, whether that was on the running back out of the backfield. They ran a couple comeback routes in that spot, and it was money out of Quinn every time. And it was a great ball after great ball, and they just found ways to do it. We knew the run game was going to be really challenging for them to get going. It ended up being that way. But, man, the receivers stepped up. They beat some good DBs for Ohio State. They continued and made plays. They weren't turning it over. You got a chance to go tie a damn thing, and nobody gets a hand on him. That's exactly what happened. There's no blame on Quinn there. He had no time to even register that this was already happening. That ball was snapped. Sawyer was in his face, and it was gone by the time he had a decision to even get his hand up out and have a chance to get that thing either thrown into the end zone for a hope or tuck it away. It was over. On the flip side, there's your recipe if you're Notre Dame. slow the run game down completely for Ohio State. Take those two backs out of it. Don't give up a big play out of nowhere before half. And you have a chance to really slow them down and make Will Howard beat you, because your DBs, I think, are as good as Texas in some spots, like if not better in some other spots. Like, you have a chance in a recipe here to really grind this thing out and make it ugly for Ohio State. Ohio State wise, like, I don't think Howard was bad. I think the defense was good. Again, I just think you have a great mind like Sark. They're going to find something that works, and it's going to continue to pick you apart. Adjustments on both sides were made. But Sark's a great offensive mind, and when Quinn's on, he's got guys around him. I think, that's a threat for anybody. Ohio State still looked good, though. Like, that's still a team that is finding ways to win. I think getting gritty like that one and really having to grind one out after just boat racing a couple is probably a good thing for that team. And then to come out of it pretty darn healthy too is always a really good thing.
Yeah.
What do you guys comment on the pitch call on the goal line? Honestly, I wasn't against the call. I guess I think it's on the goal line. There's only so many plays you can run, and physically up front, I don't think Ohio or Texas could really get much of a push. Like,
they'd already been stuffed a couple times.
Exactly. So they're trying to
tried it.
Get something out on the outside, and it just didn't. It didn't work. I don't know. It's a really, really good defense. There's about 2 or 3 play calls that might have worked on that defense.
If you go back on X and like after a day or two of that kind of happening, people were able to kind of pinpoint where that thing went wrong, and it was completely in the shift and how Ohio State adjusted to the formation. Like, it was dead before it was snapped, and just didn't get out of that play call and didn't get out of that formation, and it was dead. Like, Caleb Downs sinks down over the tight end, and it's dead there. There's 3 guys in that spot with 1 guy to block them, and you can pick a guy all you want, but if the other 2 make their play and stay in their lanes, like, it's over quick.
That's why he's a top 5 pick next year. Like, he doesn't make, like, he gets bullied by that tight end. He gets shoved over, and they points at it for the taunting call. But like, so many like IQ plays that Downs makes, it's just, he's the best player, one of the best players in college football for a reason.
I mean, the alternative, I think, in that situation, because obviously you're wanting to get to the edge in that spot, like use a little speed. Do you just try and tunnel something out quick to Golden or Bond and just get the football out and into the flat and see if they can make one guy miss?
Right.
Or like, are you Jets? Like, there's not that many options that tight, and you're really relying on guys that don't block normally and receivers to get the ball out their way. Like, something had to be made. It had to be quick, and I think that's just the one they landed on, and it was beat. Like, that's as simple. The card was played and card was beat.
We talk about how good the Ohio State defense is, especially inside the goal line. Look back at Texas's 2 touchdowns. They were wider or running back wheel routes from 15, 20 yards out. They hadn't had a chance in the red zone and been able to convert all game. And that was their first time. There was like, there's your 4 best plays inside 5 yards. Try to make it happen. And Ohio State prevailed again.
All right. I think that's a good place to kind of leave that one. My brief thoughts on that is, everybody kind of talked about it, and we didn't mention his name yet, but Jeremiah Smith got pretty locked up. Like, they had a good game plan for him. The Notre Dame can also use that outlook. But when you have a loaded room full of gold, you still have a receiver that goes for 8 catches and 100 yards in tape. So I think there's just, to an extent, almost too much talent on the outside that if you're Will Howard, it would be stunning if at least one guy didn't get over 85 plus yards in one of these football games. But a good blueprint nonetheless to at least limit Jeremiah Smith, who I think that was the first game he didn't have a touchdown in, maybe all season. I think he had one in almost every game, if not maybe 1 or 2 more. I don't think he had one against Michigan, maybe, but definitely worth noting. All right, we'll leave that where it is. Let's move down the line. Before we go into the national championship preview, let's talk shopnorivals.com. Again, our good partner, No Rivals. Check them out today. ShopNoRivals.com. Pick your premium collegiate headwear, awesome designs, new teams coming. Nebraska's on the horizon. GA, be on the lookout for it. And use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on all of your headwear. We'll cover the shipping, so you pay what you see. It's a quality hat, awesome designs. Check them out today. Shout out No Rivals. Great partners there. All right, the moment you've all waited for. Let's do it. Let's break it down from the top. Let's talk the national championship game. If you're joining us on this YouTube clip, hit the like button to start it off. Hit the subscribe button. We cover all 134 teams in college football. We're down to 2. Let's talk Notre Dame. Let's talk Ohio State. The Bucs are an 8-point favorite in Atlanta this week. Let's do it. Jake, do it for us.
Well, JP, you mentioned Texas laid out the blueprint for Notre Dame. And once again, we're in I mentioned before, last 3 national runner-ups. You're going to have to play football, to be quite honest. If you're Notre Dame and you want to win this football game, Anthony Knapp is out.
Pause.
Yeah, let's give a pause and let's almost even restart. Welcome in, YouTube fans. Jake's mic is absolutely brutal.
It's
the
pretty
one
bad.
time of the year, probably the most important preview we've done all season. Jake, talk
That's
about
just
this
bad
matchup.
timing. It's
It
bad
is
We'll do it
timing.
live.
It sounds great
Fuck
right
it,
now.
we'll do it
Feel
live.
I don't.
Bill Riley.
It just cuts out at the best time.
No, you're
Um,
good.
I'll keep this one short. Notre Dame, you're going to have to play perfect football. You can't lose the turnover battle like you did last week and get away with it. You're not playing Drew Aller. You're playing a really, really talented offense. Parks, you mentioned before, how do you limit Jeremiah Smith? That seems to be the recipe for success, at least in this playoff, has been for opposing defenses. The question is, Notre Dame, I think, plays a lot of man, and Texas played zone really, really well. I'm just envisioning Notre Dame just sticking to their guns and playing man coverage, and it's going to be really, really interesting. But you know that zone works better against this Ohio State team. That's why Al Golden makes the big bucks. But what better defensive coordinator would you rather have to take on this Ohio State offense than that guy? And offensively, this is just you got to play clean. You're not going to score 30 points on this team. Last year in South Bend, it was 17-14. If you want to win this game as a 9.5-point underdog, you got to keep it low 20s, maybe in the teens, just like you have been. What'd you score? Did they score 23 against Georgia and Penn? 27 and
Against
23.
Indiana. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was thinking Penn State and Georgia. You scored 23 against Georgia. I think you scored 23 against Penn State as well.
Roughly.
27 against Penn State, 23 against Georgia, 27 against Indiana, right? They won 27-24 against Penn State.
You could be right. Either way, I just don't see Notre Dame to getting to 30 points and winning it that way. So dominate, assert yourself early. Don't let Ohio State get off to a quick start like they did against Oregon.
I think you're absolutely right. There's no shot they get to 30 points. I mean, there's been like less than 5 teams that have gotten Ohio State and under Ryan Day to over 17 points. So, I mean, you got to keep it low scoring. Just keep it competitive. I think you nailed it, Jake, when you said just limiting their weapons that you know they're going to target to take advantage of you early in a ball game, just like Jeremiah Smith. If you do that and you find yourself in a dogfight late in the game, then you're just avoiding the small mistakes. Don't get a strip sack, untouched fumble at the end of the game. Lord knows what would have happened if that happened. Comment comes in. Bryce says Notre Dame wins. Don't let your brain think otherwise. I respect that. It may be a little homerism. It sounds like you're too confident as a 10-point underdog, but we can respect it here. I don't know if I'll agree with you. We'll give picks at the end. But going back to the breakdown, I think it's super important for Notre Dame this game to get a couple of the Will Howard-esque mistakes that he made back in his Kansas State games that hurt them late in the season. And he's made a few times this year. I mean, he threw a really bad pick against Texas. They had him in some tough looks. I think if Notre Dame can do the same with their elite secondary, who has guys trying to step up because of how strained they've been, if you get those picks, I like Notre Dame. I really do against this number. I just don't know if they can do it for 60 minutes with all the hype built around and literally 10 years of pent-up aggression and a Michigan loss on top of it this season to beat this Ohio State team who just feels like in any pro sport, whether it be baseball, hockey, just feels like that team that got hot at the right time. And as you expand the playoff, that's going to be a majority of your breakdown is who got hot at the right time. You just got to do enough to get in and then play your best. And it seems like Ohio State's playing their best right now. I think Ohio State offensively, you got to make note of their offensive line. They've struggled in some spots this year. They've been pretty banged up. Can Notre Dame's defensive front, who's already banged up themselves, who's going to prevail of that injury matchup? And if Notre Dame can do so and limit the run game and the screen game, because that's where Texas got beat on a big play, like I said, low scoring game, you never know what happens, especially in this spot with how well coached Notre Dame is. So I look for a low scoring game, and I agree with you, Jake. What do you think, JP?
I think there's just it's a tall task to ask this offensive line for Notre Dame to truly bow up and limit Tumaluau and Sawyer and this other bunch, right? Like, to me, it's a lot to ask Riley Leonard to go beat this team through the air, and I just don't know if he has it in him. Like, I think they're going to very much stick to their guns and be who they want to be, and maybe they think the second half of that, Penn State game, you just warm down a little bit, hit a couple big ones. Yeah, possibilities there for sure. I think that's, something to look at, and if you are as confident as you are in this, go after it. I know Notre Dame has guys that like moving around that have a ton of snaps under their belt, but this year maybe not as much, but it's a bigger task. It's your second straight really good, probably elite defensive line you'll see. In a lot of ways, it's a team, Penn State is good. Like, that's a really good front seven. It's a really good secondary. I think in this way, they're going to let Ohio State kind of pin their ears back and go after the quarterback a little bit more and make sure that they don't get comfortable. I just don't see Notre Dame's receivers winning a ton of one-on-ones. I don't see Riley Leonard finding a way to go over 60% completion percentage and continually hit yards or 10+ yard passes to move sticks. On the flip side, like, I think Notre Dame's going to find a way to slow down this running attack a ton. Like, it's been tough sledding for everybody. And I understand that, how talented Ohio State is just at every position, but you saw a Texas team find a way to do it. And I think that's a real possibility again, that Notre Dame slows things down. If I think, Chip Kelly here, what am I really trying to do to this defense? Am I trying to just get him in space and really spread things out and play one-on-ones and be like, if I win 50% of these one-on-ones, whether I'm getting a flag or a caught ball, I think I'm winning this, right? I think that might be the thought. Like, if we want to go one-on-one with my guys, I'm going to take my guys every single time. So it's tough, and I think there's a real chance there. But Notre Dame, if you can limit the big ones and just win over for 50% of these one-on-ones, I think there's a real shot here to slow this offense down, keep yourself in it. Again, Marcus Freeman's going to pull any card out he's got. Like, anything he's got left up his sleeve, it's going to be played here. We haven't seen Ohio State in a situation where they've needed to do such a thing. Maybe they will. I'm sure if you're Ryan Day, anything's on the table. I think for both coaches, anything's on the table. We've seen Notre Dame's success doing it, I think, is the difference. And I think both sides here are just going to go balls to the wall because they love playing for the guy that's headlining their football program right now. And I think that is an underrated thing within this game, is that Ohio State really seems to love playing for Ryan Day, even with all the hate riding around him. And we know a lot of guys at Notre Dame were pumped to see Marcus Freeman hired and his continued success. And so I think don't lose that, because these guys legit love playing for these schools and these programs, and they're two brands that really highlight college football here in 2024.
Jake, we've talked about it before, but it's also worth mentioning. I think you're going to need to get a better game. I mean, you had a great game from Great House last week, but you got to get like Faison going. You got to get something, a secondary look for Leonard in the passing game, because Ohio State's going to do a decent job, especially early in the game, limiting the run, and want to do so. You're going to have a receiver performance at least above grade of what you would have had to do against Penn State, especially with the secondary and how talented they are at Ohio State. Go ahead, Jake.
I'm curious, and I'm a little concerned as a Notre Dame backer. How patient can Riley Leonard be? JP, you mentioned earlier how good yours really was because he was patient. I mean, they didn't beat those Ohio State secondary over the top. They didn't, have a bunch of explosive plays over the top. No, he was just patient. He hit Bond for, 10, 15 yards. He was taking what was given to him. And then once they got closer, they let some backs get out of the backfield and they hit him for some big plays for their touchdowns. I just don't know if Riley Leonard could do that. He favors his legs for a reason. He's one of the best escape artists in college football for a reason. I don't know if he gets 5 seconds. Does he sit there and makes the right throw? I mean, Penn State literally forced him into seeing ghosts on that last pick. That pick should have lost him the football game. It was bad. You cannot do that this week and afford to win. You just can't. So as somebody who's watching Notre Dame right now, I'm just interested to see if Riley Leonard can stay patient and just take what he's given for one more game, because I do think, Faison, Grayhouse, Mitchell, like those are good enough guys to take those routes.
All right. The time has come. We've waited all season for this. We finally know the two teams. We broke down the matchup. Let's go score predictions. Who's going to win the game? Who's going to win the college football national championship? Who's going to hoist the trophy? Who's going to be the MVP of the game? I need all of your picks on the table right now. And if you are watching on YouTube or you're watching live, drop the score prediction right now in the comments. And if you hit it on the nose, we will send you a free cap from our partner over at No Rivals, 1 entry per. So don't have any copycat answers, but drop your score predictions on the video, on the live. Let's get these rolling. Jake, kick us off. I know, making you go first on the spot. Wrap it up.
I
King.
as somebody who's it's one game, you know. If we lose, we lose. As somebody who's backed Notre Dame this entire year and has led me the way, we're taking them. We're taking Notre Dame. We're taking the Irish to win outright. I like 20-17. I think it's going to have to be that route for Notre Dame if they want to win this game. But
we got to give a quick shout out to our boy Bryce. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Something just came in. 7:41 p.m. Bryce says Notre Dame wins. Don't let your brain think otherwise. 7:49 p.m. after just our brief preview at Play the Fight song. This came in. 31-13. Bryce has a blowout. I just want to tell you that. So that's what our preview did to poor Bryce. He was all in and he checked out.
Didn't get him excited. We must not be doing our job. I must not be doing my job as a Notre Dame.
You're supposed to be selling these guys on Notre Dame. I'm not hearing it.
I'm lacking the confidence as well, just because I know how perfect Notre Dame will have to play. It's just Texas was perfect for 59 minutes and 30 seconds, but 2 plays in 30 seconds cost them the football game. A 75-yard screen and a 75-yard touchdown fumble return. So
I'm going to say the college football playoff trophy resides in Columbus. I like the Bucks to win and cover, and I only think they cover the number, even what I saw live at 8 up to 9.5, like a 27-10 game. And I think it's going to be 17-10 late because Notre Dame's defense is as good as they are, but then like a Caleb Downs pick 6, something crazy just to kind of seal it, like we've seen constantly in the national title game. Ryan Day gets his, loses some of the narrative. Michigan fans still have a field day with him because they lost to Michigan, and just the whole college football experience comes around. And I like Caleb Downs or whoever gets that game-sealing touchdown for that Ohio State defense to be the player of the game, just because that's how it works. That's just how the sport goes, and I'm just going to say college football is going to college football. So I like the Bucks. What do you think, JP? Are you going to pick it?
Yeah, 27-13 Ohio State.
I picked Notre Dame. I picked Notre Dame to win 2017. You got me on Notre Dame.
Okay, good. The way you started that off, that I put my hands above my head, I thought we were all going to unanimous pick the national title. And
I got him. Guinness in my hand. I got him.
Okay,
27-13. I just think there's too much to ask of this Notre Dame offense to stay within this one, and it's got a lot to really shut down and stifle this Ohio State offense to a number low enough for them to lose this one.
To the Notre Dame faithful, if you watched our Penn State preview, I was pretty nervous about that game too. But hey, they came out with a win. That's just this MO of this football team. They don't do it pretty. They just find ways to win football games.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just has some sort of like a Manti Te'o national championship feel to me. I don't know if I'm going to call this Ohio State team
just
that.
Notre Dame team was nowhere like this one. I will say that.
Better. Yeah, I think
healthy. I would agree completely. But you're out another offensive tackle this game.
We deserve a good football game regardless on Monday. I just think the 2024 season, I think we're going to look back and take it for granted. I think this season was really, really good. In the first 12-team era, there was just so much parity, and it didn't play out exactly how everybody thought it was going to this year with the SEC teams and the big name brands. Yes, I know we ended up with Notre Dame and Ohio State, but these are two good teams who haven't been in the spotlight in 5-10 years. So it's still a little newer, and I think we haven't had just this LSU 2019 type team, Georgia 2022, maybe Ohio State is that team during the 12-team playoff, but they haven't showed that all during the regular season. I think I'm hoping for a good game. I think we all deserve it as college football fans.
I would agree. I think anytime you're a college football fan and you don't maybe have skin in the game, whether that be money or your team playing, you just want a good football game to represent the product well. The product's still growing, which we talked about in the preseason, but I think it's still very important to have a close game here just to keep the fans maybe dialed in watching.
Will there be a ton of complaining if this is a blowout too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just by the world and the media.
Oh, yeah.
Like, will they just be like, this is broken. This whole system's broken. Like, they just start yelling at the world because they didn't get their way, kind of thing.
I think
But isn't
either
that
way, you're going to be like a team that lost to NIU and a team that lost to Michigan won the national title. What happened to my sport? Like, I think either way, people will find ways to bitch.
Well,
We've been covering sport with you guys for the last year, like every week. This is the most consistent we've ever done it. I've just come to find out that people just bitch, and they always will bitch. And they're just going to continue to, find ways to tarnish the sport and complain about it. But also at the same time, that's what makes this sport so beautiful, is because everyone is so passionate about it and has opinions about it and wants it to be better. And some people's opinions suck in making it better, but people really care about this most people care about this actual product and just want the best for it because of how great it just can be. And falls on Saturdays. So the complaining will never go away regardless of Monday's outcome.
Yeah, perfect example is I was recently in Las Vegas, like this week. So a week of the NFL playoffs going on, and you see people walking around either Vegas or the sports books later at night, like just full decked out, Justin Jefferson jerseys. I saw Justin Jefferson a billion times in Las Vegas. I'll tell you, no wonder he didn't play very well, but just like head to toe. And I just can't do that. Like that is my college football. So those people that value the sport of that equal amount, I just don't know how you do it on Sundays if you do both of them. But the college football.
You can for your team.
Do it.
I'm all in for my team. And then when your team sucks, it's fucking exhausting. It's exhausting. It's a waste of your time. It's a complete waste of a Sunday because you're right. You sit around and watch.
Sunday. I was going to say, did the kid that won 10 games?
No. Oh, I'm saying if you try to go all in on both football and I could care less about the NFL, just my own team. But there's nothing worse than watching great college football for 12 hours and then turning it around and your team is just terrible on Sunday. And you're like, maybe I'm just watching too much football. This might be a waste of time.
You mentally exhaust yourself on Saturdays. That's what I always tell people is I'm way too dialed in on Saturdays to everybody to then care about some fucking 2-15 Carolina Panthers team. So that's where I'd put it. All right. That's everything. That's the college football national title. We all gave our score predictions and picks. 2 on Ohio State to win the game. Of course, Jake is on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Let us know in the comments once again. Drop your score prediction for a chance to win a free No Rivals cap. We appreciate you being here. We love you. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But to wrap up tonight's show, we are going to do a very fun game.
I thought Cam was getting a little ahead of himself.
I'm wrapping up the YouTube clip, Jake. Learn a little professionalism. Episode 81. You still haven't figured out the flow, huh?
I don't think.
Come on now.
I think we're like episode. That doesn't matter.
I don't know.
It's episode 81, Jake.
All right.
Come on, man.
All right.
Sorry. I got mush brain. I took a red eye last night, everybody. I know I'm off my game a little bit. Tough episode to do so, but we're dialed in. All right. To wrap up tonight's show, we are going to rank our college football national championship quarterback duos from best to worst from the entire existence of the playoff, if that makes sense. So that goes all the way back to 2014 with that Ohio State team, including this year, which had the best quarterback matchup. This year's obviously would be Will Howard, Riley Leonard. Back then, Cardell Jones would be a part of it, so on and so forth. Jake's idea, I believe. So I'm going to make Jake go first.
Yeah. So we're naming the national championship quarterback. We're ranking the national championship quarterback 12-team playoff or since the playoff era. But Leonard or Howard is listed as one because they're both pretty similar. Honestly, I think whoever wins on Monday would end up on this list the same spot as what I have them right now, basically. So I don't know how you guys ranked it. That's kind of the fun of this. We did it all on what we thought, but I was just going by strictly that team, that player in college, my NFL perspective. I tried to keep out. Number one, you want me to start from 10 or from 1?
1.
You're our show, man. Do whatever you want.
I think we all have the same 1, I would hope.
Okay. Maybe number 1, I got Trevor Lawrence.
Nah, wrong.
See, there we go. Okay. Do you want me to go through the rest of my list or?
No, that's
dog
just
shit pick.
immediately wrong.
All right. I don't know. Do you want me to? Number 2, I got Burrow. Number 3, I got Deshaun Watson. Number 4, we counted it as the combination of Tua Tagovailoa
Okay.
and Jalen Hurts.
Pause. We have the same 4. Our 3 are different spots, but I wrote just Tua down because I figured the Hurts two of
Okay.
them together.
Yeah.
But
It
those
don't
4
matter.
are all the same. I just have them in different spots. But go
So
ahead.
what do you have in your first?
Burrow.
You list your first 4 because I think we're all going to be maybe we'll be similar there.
I had Burrow, then
Okay.
Watson, then Lawrence, then Tua.
Lawrence, too.
I can
I
hear
think-
the Deshaun Watson,
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence 2-3 thing, but I won't hear Joe Burrow moving from 1. That's just not a conversation I'm willing to have.
Just specifically the 2019 season, because I kind of played a factor of Trevor Lawrence's whole college career. I kind of threw into this pick. Granted, I probably should have just based it on the year they won the national title, but even then he was, we forget how good Trevor Lawrence was in college. Like
Yeah, it was really good. That's
we
why he's
thought
number 3.
lost
The other 2 are really good as
2
well.
games in 3 years.
he was, and Joe Burrow beat Trevor Lawrence. I get that, but Trevor Lawrence like single-handedly took Clemson to the national title that season too. Trevor Lawrence was really, really good. But I see what you're saying with Joe Burrow in a single season national title. Like he was.
Can't put up numbies like that and not get number 1.
Also, though, like we love Joey B. We're a Joey B podcast, but it helps that he had Justin Jefferson and
Yeah, I
Jamar
don't care
Chase.
who he had.
Could say the same thing about
I don't
Tua,
care
then,
who he
though.
had. He was that good.
That's fine. That's why I kind of have Tua at 4 and I have Trevor Lawrence at 1. Like I get, I'm trying to think. Trevor Lawrence had Renfro. Who else did he have? I think
That was the
Why did-
majority of the targets, but T. Higgins, right?
was Higgins around with
Yeah.
Lawrence?
You can probably look that one up.
Yeah,
Off the
he
top
was.
of my head.
But yeah, so
Was that
those are my 4.
2018. They won by like 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were an underdog in that game, too. I remember that. But I'll give my first 4. Pretty basic. I said Joe Burrow, too. I couldn't believe that all of us. That was a unanimous pick. But then I had Deshaun Watson as 2, Tua as 3, and then Trevor Lawrence. So we're all the same 4.
Trevor Lawrence disrespect around here is unbelievable.
That's not
It's
disrespect
unbelievable.
to have him behind another Clemson guy. They both went to 2 national titles. Both like 1-1.
That's a good question. If you're playing at a national championship game, you get them both at their peak of their collegigiate careers. Are you
Take
taking Deshaun
Trevor
Watson
Lawrence.
or are you taking Trevor
Trevor
Lawrence?
Lawrence. He was so good.
Why is
man.
that, Jake?
I mean,
Careful.
that
Oh, no.
That Ohio State game too, the 2019 season when they beat Ohio State, he was fantastic. Like he was really, really good. And Deshaun and his was good too, but his arm ability and he had an underrated ability to use his legs and he was a winner. Like you said, he lost 2 college games in his career.
Yeah. It's a fair
Give me
point to put
Taj
it.
Boyd before them all.
Any other year, Trevor Lawrence won 2 national titles. Like he just ran into an LSU team that might be the best team in the last 15
I don't think
years.
any other year because that Clemson team wasn't that great. Like they were good, but they weren't.
They were good enough to win. Though, like I'm saying,
Yeah.
they didn't have a chance in that.
Not
LSU.
any other year though.
All right, let's move it on. Let's go down the list further. Who's your 5
Yeah, this
through?
could
Let's
be
just go the rest of them.
5 through 10.
Yeah, go ahead,
For
Jake.
me, I got Stetson Bennett
Okay.
again. 2-time national champion. You pick him both years. Cardell Jones at 6, JJ McCarthy at 7, Mac Jones at 8. Now, I will say that Mac Jones, I kind of disrespecting, and I'm a little more biased just because I'm thinking of the pro Mac Jones at this point and how much help he really had. Number 9, I would have Leonard, Riley Leonard or Will Howard,
Yeah.
and then Jake Coker.
Jake Coker just did 10.
Sorry,
Jake
Jake
Coker's at
Coker.
10.
I mean, we're gonna be sitting in bars 30 years from now and being like,
You
"Man,
remember that
Alabama
Jake
quarterback."
Coker?
What about Blake Sims?
Yeah, Blake.
I think 5 through 8 are you could put them in any order and I wouldn't argue it. I right now have Mac Jones at 5, but I kind of regret that decision.
Ooh.
Yeah, I kind of regret it. But I had Mac Jones 5, Stetson 6, Cardell Jones 7, JJ 8, but I could move them all around and I would not be upset about it.
Yeah.
The JJ
Kinda
thing
like
is the McCarthy thing's tough for me because number one, we haven't
Yeah,
seen
he's
him play-
good. He was very good at Michigan.
Well, yes, but we
But
haven't
would
seen
I
him play
take
in
him
the
above these
pros,
other guys?
and no, he didn't have to do a ton, but what he did his senior year was like super efficient.
Bail him out a lot.
Yeah. It was literally like how many passes did he complete in that Penn State game? What was it, 8? Like he only threw the ball like 12 times or
He was
something
like 8
crazy
of
like
12 for
But
like 13 or something.
any time he was required to throw 10 passes, 20 passes, 30 passes, he always delivered. He
Mhm.
was super reliable.
Yeah, I mean, he bailed him out in the Rose Bowl on catching that trick play. He
Yep.
bailed him out with his legs a couple times throughout the year as well. I have Stetson above him because he was asked to do a little bit more, and he got so good those last.
I'm
2
glad
years.
you
Like,
gave
he was able to
Stetson
throw the
credit.
down ball
He's
or the deep
flowers.
ball. He didn't turn it over a ton. Like he really just figured it out. Cardale, I think he should be lower just based on size, like the sample size of how much he played. But he was also lights out. Like
Yeah.
I mean, he was nasty
People
when he was
forget
on
that
too.
story, dude. JT Barrett going down, like you kind of
Braxton
like they
Miller,
didn't
like-
know what and both, but then they didn't know what that team was going to be. And Cardinal, they didn't miss a beat, dude. Like he
No.
was so impressive. Still big in that
Yeah,
program.
I think 5 through 8 I could have any conversation with and be okay with. Parks, did you have anything similar to what mine was?
Pretty similar. I gave Stetson even more flowers. I immediately went from Cardell Jones 5.
Okay.
I shouldn't say
Yep.
1, 5. Stetson 6. Then I went over to Mac Jones. Then JJ. Honestly, I didn't include the Howard Leonard because I didn't think we were going to. I would probably slide them in before
Have him in the
JJ.
open 9 slot. Oh,
That's
you would go 8.
crazy. That's crazy, man. So you guys are disrespecting JJ McCarthy and Trevor
I'm not
Lawrence.
disrespecting. No, I just
You're
think
taking JJ McCarthy before you're taking Riley Leonard or Will Howard. You've
Yes,
always hated Will
yes.
Howard. Your opinion doesn't matter on that. But before
I
Riley
would
Leonard,
too.
Yeah, over Riley Leonard, man. Like he's a much better thrower. And they kind of like JJ McCarthy would fit perfectly in a Notre Dame offense right now.
I
Like
agree.
running the football,
ran it.
play action stuff, can use his legs when he needs to, and he
Yeah.
just makes way smarter throws than Riley Leonard does. And I love Riley. And
I think Will Howard's a good quarterback, but I think it's kind of proven that it wasn't the quarterback this year that made them lose the games they did. I mean,
Yeah.
don't look what Kyle McCord did with less. Like,
Yep.
lit the world on fire.
did Jake
I
Coker
think-
get a unanimous last there?
Yes.
Tough shot, Jake. Shout out though.
I think Jake Coker knows his place in
Or
Alabama
he's,
football
what is he
history.
doing nowadays?
He's just happy to be in the combo. He's just like, yep,
Yeah,
that
he
was
should
me.
be.
I was in
Hey,
that
I
game.
would be too. If I was
He
Jake
should
Coker, I'd be like,
be.
you slot me in there at 10. Don't you forget my name.
He'll still never buy a beer in Tuscaloosa.
That's
Like
my-
he'll
that's
be
my point.
all right.
All right, we got
if-
a couple of good Twitter questions here too.
Oh,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
ask the Deshaun Watson, Trevor
Oh, I
Lawrence.
didn't see the.
No. I didn't say that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we're going to post it
I
out
was
there
gonna
for
say,
people. But I want to know
if
if people
this
would pick
was-
Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's a good Twitter poll. I agree. If you had Quinn Ewers in here, does he change where they go?
Honestly, I might put him above Mac Jones. Maybe. Like if he last year Quinn Ewers, I think I'd put him above Mac Jones.
If it was Quinn versus Riley Leonard, and you just pick one or the other and you rank them, would you move where they are? I would consider moving them from 9th, but it'd be tough.
Yeah,
I'd probably put him.
I'd move
I put him at 5.
put Quinn Ewers at 5
Ooh.
on this list.
No. I'd leave him Cardell Jones and then Quinn Ewers.
At 6.
6.
Yeah,
That's pretty high up there.
I'm
glad
glad he's
we're-
not good of a quarterback.
That's
Game
fair.
manager. I would trust him in any one of those offenses to win the national title.
I really want to know where our guy Michael Penix to be sitting on this map right now.
Well, you know
it's
it's
pretty high.
look at this list. JJ, we all have JJ, Mac Jones, Will Howard / Riley Leonard all in our bottom 7, and those are going to be the last 3 national championship quarterbacks. It just
Mhm.
I have Stetson Bennett higher, but it just kind of goes to show like we haven't had world beating quarterbacks win national titles. It's just been good recruiting and roster building.
Yeah.
Defense talks and running backs starting to talk again more
Yeah.
and more in the sport, which is nice to see because good defense is fun to watch. And, running backs felt like they never really lost their place in college football. But I do think they're starting to get their love back in the NFL thanks to a couple of guys in there. And that helps college kids consider different programs and schemes that are being run too.
Absolutely. But all right, that's that conversation. We definitely needed to have that as a fun little topic there. We'll continue to do stuff like that throughout the off season. We're going to talk to you every week. That's just what we do here. We talk college football all year long. It's a year-round sport. So make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button. But that recaps everything in tonight's show. We hit the transfer portal, who's staying, who's going to the NFL draft, recap the semifinal games, preview the national title game, which we might talk to you before then. Just stay tuned for that. We might talk to you before that game. And then we, of course, ranked those quarterbacks from those teams in the playoff. Ton of stuff we got done tonight. We appreciate you here. We love you. We'll see you next time. Jake's showing the hat. Maybe let us know if you want some merch. We've been talking about it. Let us know if you would purchase it. I like that little plug there, Jake. I'm going to use that for what I want to talk to him about. But let us know. We appreciate you being here. We love you. We'll see you next time. Could be earlier than a week, so hopefully we'll see you then. Jake, take us away.
What?